Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are glad you are here, and just by showing up, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to present two amazingly talented and accomplished women who you need to know all about. And I promise you will leave smarter and more enlightened than you arrived. Before we get started, please let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones, and ask questions of our speakers. Also, this is very important. Please make sure your chat is set to address everyone, not just the host and speakers. By the way, that goes for you two speakers as well. I want to thank our program sponsors, for without their support, we could not do this for free. Special thanks to MedJet, Turnkey ZRG, Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Tennessee Brew Works, and Better Than Booze. So let's get down to business. Today, we welcome Tatiana Cirisano. She is an award-winning music industry analyst, consultant, and journalist based in Brooklyn. She began her career as a business reporter at Billboard magazine, where she covered emerging technology and wrote cover stories on influential artists like Tame Impala, Alicia Keys, and Travis Scott. Now at Media Research, she identifies the risks and opportunities in the rapidly changing music market for a client base of leading global entertainment and tech companies. Her focus areas include music consumer behavior, emerging tech, and fandom. Guys, that's her official bio. Let me tell you one thing I've observed about this young lady over the last few years. She's the smartest person in any room she walks into. And joining Tatiana is Andreea Gleeson. She is Chief Executive Officer of TuneCore and a leading innovator in the music industry. Drawing on her years of experience as an e-commerce pioneer in the retail industry, she joined TuneCore in 2015 as a member of the senior leadership team and rose to CEO in 2021. Andreea has helped build TuneCore into one of the most dynamic and innovative companies in the independent music space. Her passionate support of independent artists has driven the implementation of leading-edge product and technology solutions, artist education programs, best-in-class artist support, and more, establishing TuneCore as the premier development platform for self-releasing artists. In 2021, Andreea has been included in multiple Billboard lists, and under her guidance as CEO, TuneCore was included in Fast Company's list of the most innovative companies in the music industry in 2023, 24, and 25, and was repeatedly included in Crane's list of best places to work in New York. It is my pleasure to welcome these two rock stars to our platform. Please take it away, ladies.
Thanks, Tom.
Wow. That intro is a little crazy, so thank you.
That's a little insane. Yeah.
So excited to be on here with you, Tatiana. I mean, you're one of my favorite people to talk about almost anything. So excited that we get to do this with everybody else. So thank you to everybody who's joining.
Yeah, it's great to see all these names, all these different places people are signing in from. We have Sweden in the house. That's very cool. We have Miami, which is where I'm from. We love it. But yeah, I'm so happy to be doing this with you, Andrea, because I feel like our careers have just kind of been like orbiting and intersecting for a really long time. I mean, I think I probably met you first when I was at Billboard as a journalist, and I was probably calling you up for quotes for things. And it's funny, like I'm tempted to fall back into that, like, oh, I'm the journalist going to ask you questions here. And I feel like I'll have to remind myself to not do that. But
I mean,
or a little bit, but
you know so much because you have been the person that was having to make take the research in the market and then make opinions on it and also point to what is happening in the market in your journalist days. Now you're a part of the research that's like, what doesn't exist and should be quantified because we're seeing this bubbling. So you don't have to rely on other people's research to curate it up. You can actually go digging, which is like so well suited for you. And
I love
actually,
it.
can we double click into that? I think everybody here would love to hear because there's a lot of executives from different parts of the industry that would want to understand how you make such a big transition. And like if we could double click into that, I think everyone would love to hear it. Because you're right, the first time we met was in when you were a journalist, and then now we work together in many ways. Yeah, let's talk about it because I
Yeah,
think it would be
no,
fun to
absolutely, absolutely.
explore.
And it's funny because it's one of these things that I feel like I'm only understanding now after the fact, looking back at it, and I'm sort of like, oh yeah, this makes total sense that I ended up here, but I really never would have thought that I'd be in even the music industry at all. I think, I came from a journalism background and a writing background. I studied journalism in college. I loved music. I wanted to interview my favorite artists and, write album reviews and go to shows. And that's kind of how I started my career. And I was fortunate enough to start at Billboard straight out of college, which was amazing and is a place with just the most incredible people to work with who are so passionate about music and so not jaded about it either, which I think can be like hard to find an environment like that with people who've been in an industry for so long. And also just having the access there to, not just artists of such a high caliber, but also executives. And it's funny because when I started at Billboard, I barely even knew like what a royalty was, like how streaming royalties are distributed is a question that I could not answer in 2017. And because I really came into it sort of, just wanting to do interviews and stuff like that. And at the time, Billboard was a little bit more sort of consumer geared. It had veered a little bit in that direction after being, of course, like founded as a trade publication. And it was during my, I think, second year there that Hannah Karp, who's still the editorial director, was promoted to that role. And she had come from the sort of business reporter side of the magazine, which at the time was like in the corner, like a different part of, the magazine, whereas the rest was a lot more, like I said, sort of like consumer geared. And with her taking the helm, a lot of the directive was, we really want to go back to our roots as a trade publication. And so literally everyone got a copy of like the Donald Paston book on their desk Monday morning. It was like, if you don't know what's in this book, I literally have it like on that shelf somewhere.
I love that. The one you got.
Um,
That's
Shout out
awesome.
Don Passman. And yeah, we all really, if you didn't know, the business side of things, you really needed to learn it. And so I started to get my education really from talking to people, for the most part, from calling up executives like yourself and, asking
Well,
your thoughts.
the off the record discussions, right?
The off the record, yes, the off the record discussions, just learning from the people who were dealing with, the industry every day. And it really opened my eyes to so much. I started to frankly see all of the problems in the industry that I don't know if I really understood as deeply before, and was kind of just felt more motivated to understand those better, figure out how we can improve this industry for everyone. Like, just kind of got very passionate about this. And at the time, Mark Mulligan, who's of course founder of Media and our GM and now my boss, he was one of the people that I called and tended to get like just he would just blow my mind every time we spoke, which I feel like you probably feel the same, Andrea.
Of
I think
course.
a lot of us do. I would call him to ask about, some industry trend that we were seeing, and he would always have a different perspective that no one else had brought up. And so I started to get really deep into media and would beg their press person at the time for like free copies of the reports and stuff, which, lots of people in the room here are probably familiar with, like trying to get those reports, trying to get your hands on that information. I was one of those people. And yeah, it got to the point where I was looking for what is my, next step going to be. I was interested in trying something different because I had always been in journalism, and there kind of just happened to be I actually saw the job posting on Water and Music, which a lot of people here are probably familiar with. If you're not, check out Water and Music. But I think like at the time, I wasn't sure how the skills would transfer. And I don't know if Midia and Mark were either. It was kind of like a chance that we were taking. And now that I'm in it, I totally see it because I'm still analyzing the industry the same way that I was and looking for trends and shifts and still talking to people all the time. And also, I think particularly with what we do at Midia, we're very much an art and a science type company. You know, it's not just data. It's a lot of like big picture thinking and taking in what we're seeing around us. We do a lot of sort of qualitative research, things like that. And so I feel like I'm still tasked with like finding the story almost and storytelling, except that it's just a lot more future focused. So
Well, media is unique in
yeah.
that way, right? Like there's other research companies out there that really are good at recapping what happened in the past, but they don't always take the future lens of like, what does this mean ahead?
Yeah.
Uh, and I think there's when anyone needs to have a what's the state of the music industry where it's going. I mean, this is why media gets tapped all the time. So 200%, and it is a story. It's like, what does this mean? And you have to look at the quantitative and the qualitative and make those like kind of prediction bets. And so yeah,
Totally.
it's really suited you well. I mean, I remember when you were a Billboard with Micah, it was kind of that was the point of the discussions. We would have these monthly chats where we would
Mhm.
talk about what's happening in the market because you were kind of wanting to get where are things going. I mean, and now you're just like that's what you do,
Yes.
which is awesome.
Yeah, and actually, I didn't even really realize that until just hearing you talk about it now. Like, as a journalist, you are always looking for what people haven't discovered yet, I guess, or like what is the part of the story that nobody's paying enough attention to, or what does this mean for the future? You always want the next day story, like, so it's kind of similar to what I'm doing now. But I'm also curious, did you always know that you were going to be in the music industry, or how did you kind of
Uh,
find your path? It's funny, for as long as I've known you, I don't think that we've had this conversation.
yeah, oh good. Oh, I love this. You get the live reaction. Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
I actually started my career in retail and e-commerce. So I made a big change. And I was in e-commerce for over a decade, and I lived through bringing shopping online. So what I learned about that, because we grew our business from 0 to 400 million in 7 years in 2 countries, and it was incredible to live through such a crazy growth path. What I really learned is that I love digital and I love building. And when you're building it that fast and the market was growing really, really fast at the time, you also have to iterate and re-evolve, like how you do business as a whole. So I I ran the website for Lord and Taylor, the department store. And so the last year that I was there, I actually had to come back to the marketing team where I had started and make everything omni-channel because in the wake of growing digitally, we didn't connect the customer experience with the in-person experience. And so that's
Mhm.
when I got my first hands at business reimagination because and turnarounds. So I got the bug of okay, you've got to know how to grow and feed the beast on something that's growing really fast and how you have to run a business in that way. But then also when you're already big, but you need to evolve and change with innovation, how do you
Yes.
handle that as well?
Which is exactly the same role you're in now.
It is actually. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of parallels. Um,
Yeah.
And one thing, I'm one of these people that wants to give 200% to everything that I do. And I just can't help myself. I work to satisfy myself. And I just wanted what I did every day to actually add up to more. So there's something that happens when you've been somewhere for a decade and you're starting to look around, you're like, all right, well,
Totally.
I never intended to stay here this long and okay, but now what's next? And it was just a perfect time. I also realized after I cleaned up and turned around the omni-channel experience, I'm like my life cannot be the Christmas calendar. This is like not for me. Like I can't because literally in retail all you do is revolve around the holidays for
God,
the
yeah.
planning. And I didn't know what it would be, what would be next for me. And but I was open to doing something very different. And so for those, because I know that, really there's a lot of executives here. Many people come here for community to also talk about, think about career building.
Yes.
Switching industries, like if you're thinking about making a really big move, I got a piece of great advice when I would meet with, like, to collaborate with other executives on just going through this phase of my life because I had never been through it before. I had been at the same company for over a decade, so I had not
Yeah.
been out to go look for a job. And especially when I was open to moving industries because I wanted to do something very different. Best advice I got was, what's the worst that can happen? And to just not be afraid, hey,
Good life motto.
yeah, and it's stuck with me in other ways, that advice that I got. And so I swung for things. And obviously when you're more senior, usually you get your jobs through your network or through recruiters in network. But if you're moving industries, you have no network. So I was still applying to jobs on LinkedIn at the same time. And I ran across this role at TuneCore to run marketing for a digital distributor. I was like, I had never heard of this company before, but I really resonated with the mission
Hmm.
that we get to help independent musicians really put their music out and rise based off the merit of the music. And for me, in my early 20s, I was really in the indie scene in New York City. So I would go to CBGBs every weekend to see Battle of the Bands, and I loved finding like artists on the subway. I mean, how would you discover music in the physical world? You didn't really have a lot of options. The local indie record shop, it was
Hmm.
very, very different than today. And so for me, seeing this, a lot of light bulbs came off where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, this is online. I know digital really well. And I now get to bring my passion and what I know with digital to actually help independent musicians start their own small business essentially, and help art rise that is warranted to get in front of listeners. And it just really resonated with me. I knew I wanted to do something that just added up to more, and this hit all of those boxes for me when I came across it. It was meant to be. And so I came on to run marketing, and there was a lot of best practices that were like easy wins that retail had come into digital much sooner than music did. When I started, downloads
Yeah.
were still driving more revenue annually than streaming was at the time. So, because we're talking about almost 10 years ago. So, anyway, it's been absolutely incredible. The things that got me so excited about what the potential of TuneCore was at the time are still the things that make me so excited today. Uh,
Yeah.
and I feel very fortunate that I get to do something that I do feel like it adds
Yeah.
up to more. And
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
very exciting.
That's awesome. I love hearing people's sort of career stories and how you got to where you are. And I just feel like you have such an incredible amount of, I don't know, like ambition and self-determination and excitement for what you do, which is amazing. Like you didn't just switch industries, you switched industries and became CEO quite rapidly of like one of the biggest distributors out there. So it's amazing, So kudos. Yeah.
It's been fun. It's easy. It's easy when you get to do what you believe in. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that I get, TuneCore is a part of Believe. Believe is TuneCore's parent company based out of Paris. And we get we get to do good business. We have our company values. We really stick to them. And what's super interesting is that at TuneCore, it tends to attract a lot of team members that driving impact is very high on why they pick to work there.
Hmm.
And it's really interesting. I did this offsite with my executive team a couple of years ago, and one of the exercises we did with the moderator was to plot out on a quadrant what really motivates you as an executive and really makes you excited about work. And literally 90% of my executive team was sitting in the impact quadrant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just really visually impactful to me. So it's exciting because not only do we do business for doing good business, but everyone shows up because they also want to drive impact. So the way that you can have ideas and iterate and do things for the right reasons. And I believe that you can have, um, if you focus the business on creating impact and creating value, you think about, how do I make value for my artists? How can I give something to them that they are going to want? You don't
Mhm.
focus on your margins, you don't focus on your sales. Yeah, those are important, and that's how we keep the lights on. But if you focus on, how am I a good partner to my DSPs and create value for them? How do I
Yeah.
create value for my employees? How do I create value for my artists that I serve every day?
Mhm.
And if you ground what you do around that, it actually makes you more innovative. And then people want to work with you. Your customers want to
Mhm.
stay and, and use you. Your employees want to stay and have high retention. And, just it's very exciting for me to be a leader where I have the ability to really prioritize and innovate in that way.
That's amazing. Yeah, we need to do that. We need to take up that exercise at Media. I'm curious if people would say. I love that.
I'll get
And
it for you. It's a good one.
yeah, I'm curious, because you and I both like spend a lot of time, I'm sure you survey your members and your non-members. We survey music creators all the time. We look at a lot of data sets on this, but how do you sort of keep your ear to the ground on what artists' needs are today beyond looking at that data? And maybe that's a good way to like open up the conversation about, all of the things that we're here to discuss, of which there's a really long list.
Yeah, I mean, a couple ways. One, obviously, we keep an eye on what's happening in the market. What are the shifts in the market? Where's the market going? We read a lot of media reports. So you start there. And we really try to bake in listening to our artists throughout everything that we do. We're a music company that is powered by tech, so product development is a very big part of what we do. We don't want to take blind bets. We want to hear what are our customers' needs. So the first line of defense on that is, what do customers write in about? What do they want more help with? What do we have as a gap, and we need to bridge and make it better. So that's like, you're getting that data every day with just
Yeah.
who's writing in and what they're asking about. That is a huge first line of defense for really kind of listening to artist needs. And then it's about understanding who you serve. So like, who are who are my artists? And because an artist that's starting out, that's putting up their first release, is very different in what their needs are, versus Russ, who also releases on TuneCore
Yeah.
and is top. He hits the Billboard Hot 100 and is a top artist. Sitting there next to major record label artists. So it's a very big spectrum to be servicing, and you have
Yeah.
to break that up into segments and then understand where you're going to innovate.
Mhm.
And then from there, you can build on that with your products and services to make sure that you're addressing those unmet needs, or create something that doesn't exist. Because one thing, you definitely want to survey them and ask them what they want, but then you also have to ask them what their challenges are. Like, what is your biggest challenges? What is the area that you are spending the most amount of time on and is top of mind for you, like challenges. And
Yeah.
that then reads between the lines, because if you're going to innovate, you
Totally.
need to not just ask people what they say they need, but what do they really need.
Yeah.
And that's when it gets really interesting. And today, I mean, and let's get into it, because I think what's super interesting about where the market is now, um, you know 20 years ago when TuneCore started, the name of the game was just getting access, right? There was an inflection point that happened 20 years ago. I think it's super interesting that so many companies are hitting their 20-year anniversary right about now. Like, YouTube just hit
Yes.
the 20-year anniversary. There's like 20-year anniversaries happening everywhere, because there was this inflection point that happened at that time when digital in music was like really starting to begin. That's when DSPs got off and running, started being created, etc. And so that was a point then. And the name of the game was getting access, because before that time, you needed to be signed. You needed to be signed. And only when you were signed could you get your music up. And just access meant that that was the way that you would be able to grow. And so then platforms like TuneCore, CD Baby, later on other distributors came that were open and introduced this model that you put your music up and find your audiences, and you don't need a label. And then what's so interesting is that in a way that became a better funnel for the labels to be able to not take as many bets, because what I observed over the
Yeah.
last 20 years and definitely in the last decade, as digital is built up now, artists have to be built up to a certain level before they will be signed. And because of
Absolutely.
platforms like TuneCore, it enables like the artists, that are really having potential to be able to organically build their audiences. So before, right, you would have to sit there and listen to a song and really A&R it. So and then just take your bets on artists, but then it became more, hey, there's an audience here. They've built it up to a certain level, and it's done some of that development work on behalf of the label. So that really changed how signing happened. Uh,
Mm.
but now we've run into a new inflection point, which is that almost our own doing because of platforms like TuneCore. There's over 100,000 tracks going to the DSPs on a daily basis. And the new barrier to entry for artists, even signed artists, is cutting through the noise.
Yeah.
And so that's really the new challenge. And I feel like we're living through a moment where, what does that mean? How does, you know, how do you rise? And so marketing and promote and
Mhm.
development become a really important component. And you all have done a lot of research on this. So I would love to get your take on just what you've observed on this. And for everyone listening, just like what's top of mind for you in this inflection point we're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it definitely is the number one thing for years now. Every time that we do our creator survey annually and we ask, what's your biggest challenge? Breaking through the noise slash oversaturation is the number one thing. And you're right that, it's sort of this, I think that the music industry right now has a lot of paradoxes in it. And that's one of them is like you have more access than ever, you have more visibility than ever as an artist, and the door is open in a way that it never was, but there's more stairs. There's sort of it's still harder than ever to break through. And I mean, I have so many thoughts on this. I almost don't know where to begin, but I think part of the difficulty in particular that we're facing now is that all of the monetization, all of the business models around music and around entertainment in general are hits based. They're focused on scale. They're focused on having, these massively successful artists that have massive audiences. And we're reaching a point where it's just much harder to do that because of how fragmented listening is, because there's so many, artists and songs releasing, because everyone is sort of fighting for attention. And by the way, it's not just music competing with music anymore. It's music competing with everything else on the same platforms for people's attention. So I think a big challenge that I'm seeing now, which is sort of like the next stage of this inflection point, is that there's more and more artists who are trying to figure out, okay, the traditional way of building a career isn't working for me. I'm going to try something new. And that's why we're seeing so many different types of being an artist these days. Like there isn't one blueprint, there's like 30. And they're trying all these different things. Um, but no matter what, we're kind of getting stuck at the monetization level because there aren't as many sort of ways to monetize depth. Everything is about monetizing scale. I mean, obviously there's options out there. You can go on Bandcamp, you can sell your music, you can start a Patreon or, a YouTube subscription and get people to do that. But I just feel like we haven't really cracked that nut yet of, okay, more and more artists are realizing they need to monetize depth instead of scale, but like, how do they actually do that? And how do they build fan bases that are engaged enough to want to do that? I think that's
And
sort
by,
of like the
by
next
depth
question
versus
we're getting
scale, do you
to.
mean by depth versus scale, you mean like better connecting with your audiences and not having as big of audiences? Like, can you
Yeah.
expand on what you mean by depth versus scale?
Yes, yes. Like, rather than, in streaming, if you don't have a massive listener base, it's just really, really hard, as you know, to earn, meaningful income. It's also getting harder to build that type of scale because people are spreading their listening across so many more songs and artists. So instead of trying to go big in that way. I'm seeing more artists and their teams try to focus on, it's like the thousand true fans theory thing, which I think is, one like sort of oversimplified way of thinking of it, but that sort of like helps get to the point of you're focusing on like, how can I more deeply engage, yes, more deeply engage people, than just try to reach many at a very like shallow level.
I totally agree. And in a way, in today's day and age, you actually, if you go for that path, you can actually be better set up for the scale.
I
Uh,
totally agree. Yes.
because my observation, because I see, we have hundreds of thousands of artists that use TuneCore, and so I have a really good exposure of like what different artists look like, and what I observe, the ones that are going to be able to go all the way, they do spend time with their audiences and focus on the depth.
Yeah.
And they do that and they keep focusing on it while they also try to scale. And
Yes.
their audiences grow with them. And so, like, to build on that, when an artist is just starting out, they need to really focus on their content. Obviously, number one, they need to focus on making really great music. That is number one. No matter what, you can market, you know, I'm a marketer. You do not do as well marketing something that's not a good product. So
Yeah.
you have to focus
Which
on as
this
an
needs to be
artist.
said more, by the way. I feel like we don't touch on that. The music needs to be good
Let's
from
like
the
start
beginning
with
in these
that.
conversations. Yeah.
Number one, your
Yeah.
music, if you're an artist starting out, you need to make sure you're spending your time on your music and you're making your music better. And that takes time. You have to make to start, you probably need to practice. I mean, anything you do, whether you're an athlete or you're practicing public speaking, the more you practice and do it, the better you're going to be. And so you
Mhm.
have to put the time into creating, and you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to get better as an artist if you focus on that. So that's
Yes.
number one. Number two, you do need to focus on building your audience organically. So just create content. It is also a way for you to practice your storytelling on who you are, uh, and building that depth, to your point. And
Mhm.
you want to have that depth as you scale because it's going to make a much, much better audience. What's super interesting, I mentioned Russ earlier. He's a TuneCore artist, and he is like the king of like the blueprint of what to do because uh, you know, as he was building, there was one point he was releasing a song a week because he just wanted to get better at making better music. And also it created a way to get it in fresh music in front of audiences and have another shot at potentially finding a new fan. So he did that, but he also really spent time on his socials with his community.
Mhm.
And he built like both the depth and the scale.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting is like, so he has like 12 million monthly listeners on Spotify, but he will sell out arenas. And there are plenty of artists that have 12 million monthly listeners on Spotify who
I
cannot
felt
sell out
that.
an arena.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's because he did both. And then he layered on the fancier marketing on top of that,
Yes.
as you go. But that you need to do later. And so it's just really important for artists starting out, and I think it's just an important component that you need to work on building your community.
Yeah. It's like building the foundation for your house, sort of. You need to focus on that and build from there. And you reminded me of there's this saying that I saw somewhere, and I wish that I knew where it came from because I want to give credit to that person. But it was focus on your smallest number. And I've been thinking about that a lot because the usual way to go about your sort of growth strategy as an artist, I would think, is thinking about your biggest number. You're thinking about like how many Spotify monthly listeners do I have? How many streams do I have on my last release? Like how many followers do I have? How many views? And it's this idea that if you instead look at of all the things that you track, what is the smallest number and focus on growing that because those are the most engaged people, it will sort of inevitably help you with those larger numbers. And I saw a really good example of this the other week, just online, this artist that was sharing, I don't know, I think it was on TikTok. I'm gonna find it actually because I feel like I should shout out this person. They were sharing things that they'd done to kind of build up their music career. And one of them was that when they were releasing song clips on TikTok, if somebody commented and said, "When are you touring? Can I come see your show?" Because there were so few of those people and it was a really localized group who were listening, he would DM them and say, "Where do you live? I'll come play songs for you at your house."
Shut
And
up. That's amazing.
and like, I think it's funny because I also think you could look at that cynically and be like, oh my God, this is what artists have to do now to get people's attention. They have to knock on your door. Like, that's crazy. But I also think it's really amazing and genius and a really good example of if you focus on that smallest number who are really obsessed with you and you really cater to them, then they help you grow. And as you grow, they're more loyal to you. So I just love that example. I'm going to find who it was.
Oh, that's so good. I love it. Yeah, 200%. And I think it's important you bring up a good point with the online, but then the offline, because in my view, the artists that can go all the way, one, the music is great. Two, they have done all the community building on social, but then they're also they're live and they bridge the community building of being accessible online with in person. They do the meet and greets, they
Mhm.
connect, they reward the meet and greets in person and post it back online, and they're really bridging those two areas that I think is super important. They are also very curious and really
Yes.
into their data, and they are experimenting up the wazoo. And the last one is that they are just also involved in the business side of the house. And because it makes them a better creator and better understanding like the kind of content they should do, what that translates to their streaming, and they're just really plugged in. And if you don't want to do all those, okay, you can outsource it, but it is going to come at a cost of you not being able to probably have that holistic view.
Mhm.
So, if an artist wants to be independent all the way, and have more control of like their career, them having those five pieces are really essential.
Yeah, you sort of have to think of yourself as a small business as an artist, for better or for worse these days. I think that is a key ingredient to success is being willing to dig into your data and have a business plan and sort of put on your CEO hat for your own music career when you're starting out. It really makes a difference.
100%.
Yeah.
So, actually, I want to go a little deeper on something we were talking about earlier about the online presence. Can you talk a little bit about the bifurcation theory?
Yeah.
One, awesome name. Two, you want to explain what bifurcation theory is and how it really relates to potentially where the music industry is going, talking about the small communities and the 30 different kind of artists. I mean, there are more paths.
Yeah, no, of course. And yeah, I feel like we've gotten a good portion of the music industry saying the word bifurcation on a regular basis now,
Love
which
it.
I'm sorry, you're welcome. I don't know. Um, but yes, definitely something that I've spent a better part of a year probably or longer studying. So what we've started observing at Media over the past 2 years or so is there's sort of this new class of music artists that we're seeing who are moving to this stage. This first part of it is a little bit, I guess, depressing, are moving to this stage of, you know, uh, the streaming economy's impact on them, where rather than kind of trying to fight it, they're feeling a little bit apathetic, where they're saying, okay, look, I don't think that I will ever have the scale required to earn meaningful income from streaming. And even if I do, I have so many steps to go to before, I get there and I need to make ends meet while I'm trying to. And to do that, they, like we've been talking about, they want to find their biggest fans. They want to engage them. They want to build up that loyal fan base and then monetize them. And they're finding that streaming isn't really providing adequate tools for them to do that either. They don't know who's listening to their music on a more on the sort of the granular level they need. They can't message them. There's sort of a limited ability to even express yourself as an artist on social platforms. All bios look the same. You don't really get any, context beyond, their photo. I think the streaming services have made strides in this in recent years, but it's still just not enough compared to, on social media, which is where artists are sort of flocking to. So we're seeing this new generation say, well, if streaming is not giving me meaningful income and it's not helping me connect deeply with my fans either, why am I spending so much of my, limited time and effort and resources trying to be a successful streaming artist? Like, what if I just focus my energy in a different place? And so it's not that they're not releasing their music to streaming, although some of them, that is the case where they're actually not. It's more that they're sort of deprioritizing streaming success and focusing on usually success on social. And usually that means YouTube. Is what we found is there's sort of this new class of artists who are, and also I would say SoundCloud, but YouTube is usually what comes up when I actually talk to artists who are doing this, where they are using these platforms to, release music directly to their fans, to talk to them, often acting a little bit more like content creators than artists. And there's a lot to say here because I think that this emerging class of artists has been sort of a blind spot for the industry because they don't fit into the typical role of what an artist looks like. So I think it's sort of been easy to not dismiss them, but sort of think they're not relevant, I guess, to what the industry is doing, to sort of say, oh, those are content creators. That's a different thing. Whereas I think our view at Media is that this is actually like a new emerging class of artists who have figured out a different way to make things work when the system wasn't working for them. And by the way, social isn't perfect for their needs either, which I could talk about for, another hour. Um, but so that's kind of the gist of bifurcation theory. And just quick, I want to share, just so you don't think I'm like making this up. We do have data that tells us that these things that we're sensing actually are reflected in the data. One of those data points is that we, as you know, Andrea, we always do an annual total addressable market of all the people in the world who are making music, who are releasing music, etc.
Which
And
there's a survey out now for, right?
oh my
That
gosh,
just
thank you
went
so much
out.
for reminding me.
Fun.
Yes, there is a survey out now. If anyone is an artist in this chat, or obviously you all work with artists, please share it. It's on our website. I will link to it in a second. But yeah, that's one of the inputs for this. And when we look at those numbers, the number of global music creators who are self-releasing to streaming through a distributor like TuneCore. I think it was about 7 million, just under 7 million in 2023. We'll update those numbers with, this survey that we're talking about. And that was, I think, like a 7% growth year on year. And then the number of global creators who are uploading directly to social or to platforms like SoundCloud that are, more social, and YouTube, was about 44 million, and it was an 8% growth. And of course, we would expect those numbers to be such. We would expect that, there's obviously more people who are releasing to social than are flowing through to streaming. Maybe a lot of those people are hobbyists, which I'll debunk in a second. But you would think that. But what we really focus on there is the growth rate, because for a couple of years now, the sort of social uploader segment has been growing a lot faster than self-release to DSPs. And so we were curious about, okay, are those people just hobbyists? Are they just like not serious about a music career anyway? Let's
And there was
ask.
a pandemic in the middle, right? When
And
people
there was a
were home
pandemic in the middle. Yeah. Are people just like doing this for
for
kicks?
fun.
Like let's figure this out.
The dentists and the doctors, right? Who
Yes,
have their
that's
recording studios in the
yes.
basement.
Exactly. So we asked them in our survey, why are you doing this? And there were options like, I'm just not ready to release music, or I'm not serious about music. But actually, the top answer was, I prefer to release music in places where I can directly connect with my fans. So we do see this as being driven by a dissatisfaction with streaming on a number of levels. So I'll shut up now, but that's sort of bifurcation theory in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, and it's true. And if you're also, I think like what's also come into the market is that um, you know, some DSPs have introduced that you don't get paid until you hit 1,000 streams. So if you're below a certain level and
Right.
you're paying money to get your music out onto a self-releasing platform, like where is that value if you're not also making some money back and
Right.
you have to hit a certain level? So focusing on platforms where you're building your audience to start and then deciding if you want to move on is not the worst thing.
Yeah.
Um, and going back to something I talked about at the beginning related to just how much content is making it to the DSPs on a daily basis, does all that content belong on Spotify? Is it
Right.
ready to go there? Going back to the first thing you need to focus on is making your music good and experimenting with it more on social media to start is not the worst thing in the world before it
Yeah.
makes it to the DSPs. I mean, I think of Instagram, right? What did Instagram do for all of us? It made us overnight all better like photographers because we could add filters. Now, does my pictures that I take belong in an art gallery? Probably not, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and there's like parallels there that maybe, you know, it was a little too easy to put the music out. And where does some of that content belong? You know, and I do think there's something there that a little bit of self-editing has happened. We did see that last year it was over 100,000 tracks going to the DSPs. I think that went down to below 100,000 tracks going to the DSPs daily. So there's been kind of a self-correction that, you know, creators are not fully releasing music to the DSPs as much and maybe going to what you're saying, going to social media. So it's
Yeah.
going to be interesting to see. I mean, we're still developing these trends because we also, to be fair, had the pandemic in the middle there. What was you know, everyone was home, they couldn't go tour, they instead started recording and putting it up. And then there was the go back to in person that happened. What is the new trend? And I think we have yet to really see it, but I do think
Yeah.
that there is we're at a time of change. It's going to be interesting to see how things develop from here.
Oh my God, yeah. Um, and how are you, because you've made so many changes to TuneCore since, I mean, you said when you started, it was downloads were still the main way that, artists were making money, and then you moved to distribution being the core. And as of late, it's been really expanding, I think, to support them in all these other areas
Yeah.
beyond streaming. So a distributor is not just distributing music anymore. I mean, do you want to talk a bit about
Yeah.
what's up
And
with
it
TuneCore these days? Yeah.
Yeah, it all comes down to what we talked about at the beginning about listening to what artists need. Similarly, like we look at the survey that you mentioned, which shows that the number one need artists have is cutting through the noise. Similarly, it's the number one need when we talk to our artists. And we've been seeing this as a trend for years. And it was coming. So before everyone started talking about it in the last year and a half, we were already working on finding solutions to
Mhm.
actually get our artist music in front of qualified listeners. What's been so interesting about almost 20 years that TuneCore has been around is many of the big top artists that everybody listens to were originally TuneCore artists. And so Jelly Roll actually started on TuneCore when I started on TuneCore in December of 2015. Phoebe Bridgers, who was just won Grammys for in Boy Genius, she also was on TuneCore around the same time. SZA, um, Ed Sheeran, the most famous one, he actually went around to all of the majors to try to get signed, but then nobody would sign him because he didn't have a resume yet. So he came onto TuneCore and really started his career and really was also in the driver's seat on his negotiations of the deal and how he wanted to do it. That's the amazing thing that artists should be doing is they should bootstrap their business and hold out as long as possible as an independent until they can have more control. Just like a startup would. Exactly the same before you bring in outside investors. So anyway, we're really proud of that. Through all that time, we have had the history of seeing what does an artist who is taking off look like. And we have been using that historical performance to inform then what those patterns look like so that we can build solutions to get artist music with potential in front of listeners that would have affinity to their music. And so we started back in 21 actually with some early beta programs with the DSPs on building marketing programs that does exactly this at scale. And at the start of last year, we were able to fully launch our TuneCore Accelerator program, is what we called it, which is that we put artist music into marketing programs at scale. So it's exactly addressing the I can't cut through the noise. When we see someone who has potential for the various phases of development, we could put their music into these marketing programs. And to give you a sense of the scale of it, We last year in 2024 had 450,000 artists that were opted into the program. 110,000 of them had music put into one of these marketing programs. And
Wow.
everyone saw some growth, but 1 in 5 saw such significant growth, they moved up a streaming segment. And so that's what we're trying. We've been developing artists. What we're able to do now is identify those artists with potential, like we've done since TuneCore started, and recognize those patterns because of all the history and be able to place them in the right opportunities. Because when music is good and an artist is good, they just need exposure.
Yeah,
And so then we just make sure that we get it the right exposure to the right audiences, and this is where we've partnered with the DSPs to make sure that that we're, building the right kind of programs for all those phases of development.
for sure. And so that they can, so that artists can sort of grow with you as a company. There's, can move up a rung, can continue to grow and all of that instead of the typical model of a distributor sort of being a launch pad. You're a place where people can really grow, it seems.
Exactly. And where we really specialize, I mean, we put Russ's music in this program as an example, so it could be good for a top artist. It's also really great for artists that are um, in those very early phases. Say they're not even monetizing on Spotify because you need your track to reach 1,000 streams. We're getting them into monetization placement because
Right. That's
we're able to
huge. Yeah.
see we're able to see, okay, this has potential. We can put it in and give it that exposure it needs. It's just about cutting through the noise, and that's exactly what we've been built and are iterating on. Because now
Yeah.
we're adding in more marketing programs with more DSPs for other phases of development, so that we can keep really supporting and helping more artists.
Amazing. And Tom asked in the chat for example of one of those marketing programs.
Yeah, I mean, the better example for me to speak to is artists. So Alexandra Kay is one of the artists that we put into this program. She subsequently was just signed to Broken Bow, but we have been the one really fueling her career apart these last few years. It was a mix of putting it into at scale programs like Spotify Discovery Mode, so picking the right tracks at the right time, and we manage actually the opt-ins on behalf of the artist for seasonality, for being able to optimize for ROI, because there's catalog management that you do across both the back catalog and the front line. So we do that for finding new audiences. And then we couple that with DSP placements. So for editorial. So when things are taking off, the number one thing the DSPs want to know from us is like, who are the artists that are on the rise right now? And we're able to then pitch accordingly with the trajectory we see from the more at scale programs like Spotify Discovery Mode and some of the other betas that we have out that I can't quite talk about yet. And then are able to then include that with editorial coupled with it. So what's really been able to happen for her is that she saw like a 25% lift on her streams overall through the various phases, because you want to create discovery. So that's the first phase. How do you put it into an audience, in front of an audience that has an affinity for her music? And then how do you re-engage that? And make sure that then you're following it up with getting back in front of that audience. And there's just different marketing tools that address both of those areas.
That's the key too. I feel like, when we started this conversation, we were saying how the hardest part of being an artist used to be getting your music out there. Now it's breaking through. Now maybe it's not just breaking through, it's staying, in that, retaining that attention, I guess, or retaining that interest. So
Completely,
maybe
because
you've even moved into that next stage.
yeah, exactly. And you don't just getting the new audience is just the first step. How do you re-engage them? How do you get them from like
Yeah.
listening to the music to then following you?
Yeah.
To then coming back and listening to your next song. And you have to, there's great marketing tools, Marquee, Showcase. Those are all marketing programs on Spotify specifically, if we're just sticking with Spotify, that you
Mhm.
can get somebody who started to follow you to now listen to the new song. So how do you lever these things up together as a part of the release plan and be able to do that at scale? And that's what we've built with TuneCore itself.
Yeah. No, that's great. And that's also one of the things when I was saying earlier, social isn't optimized for artists either. Part of it, I think, is that a lot of social platforms algorithmically are designed to keep pushing your content to like the farthest away person within that orbit rather than sending it back to the people who are already part of your community, if that makes sense. So there's still obviously there's both happening, but I think the balance has been tilted a little bit towards reaching as far and wide rather than, okay, how can we re-engage the people who have shown interest? So
This is
that's
the depth
yeah,
discussion, the depth part again, right?
exactly.
And you need to try to do both because and as the artist is doing this for themselves, where they are, again, getting good music, then really spending time with their community. But are we better partners to help them do this and scale it? And
Yeah,
seeing those artists that have the potential and making sure we're doubling down and just giving them opportunity at the
yeah.
right time with the right audiences with the right program, because this is what you would do in the physical world. Basically, what I'm describing in digital is no different than what's been happening in the physical world for years. What would you do if you needed to develop an artist? You would start by taking them to radio. Radio is kind of like the algorithmic discoveries of the world of today's streaming economy. You
Yeah.
would, get it spins. If it doesn't take off, you drop it, right? But if it takes off, okay, what's the next thing you do? Maybe then for album release, you negotiate end caps. Then say that starts, the sales start coming in. There's interest in the morning show and the night show. And you would build, right? You would layer in discovery components and then re-engaging with the fans. You'd start doing the radio runs to then close that circle. This is how you re-engage the audience that first listened to you. And now you get
Mhm.
to build a deeper relationship. The beautiful thing that we live in today is that it's not there isn't one radio station that is for rock and one for hip hop, and we are
Right.
all forced to listen to the same thing. In a way, there's a lot of parallels with what has happened in retail. Uh, just bear with me for a second. I'm going to leave music for a
Please. Yeah,
second
please.
because you know, think about what's in your closet today versus what was in your closet 25 years ago. What was in your closet was what you can go to a physical store in your area and buy.
Yeah.
Today, you have the world at your fingertips, and you can have more micro tastes to better cater to your personality of what you can wear. And like
Great example.
I
Yeah.
love to wear, I love a good suit. I found this amazing designer in Poland called Agi, and I buy directly from her from Poland.
Amazing. I love that. You do always have the
And
best suits, so that's
I'm always on the hunt for a good suit. And
shout
so
out to that Polish company.
but
That's
I don't need to go to Saks and just I'm at what their buyers decided to buy for me. Just as, it's not like the radio stations are deciding this one cue, okay, what's in for hip hop that you can now you have you discover algorithmically that is like based off your listening patterns, the things you've listened to before, it will suggest to you.
yeah.
Just like in what Amazon has done. I mean, how we've all been victims to it. You go shopping on Amazon, and based off your previous history, it will suggest things to you. Like try to go search for black turtleneck on Amazon. My God, would you get a crazy like amount of stuff to look for? But based
Yeah.
off your shopping patterns and what you bought before, it will curate to surface things for you to not make that an overwhelming experience.
Hmm.
And similarly, that is what we live in an age where that is possible for music discovery and listening and then re-engagement. Maybe you forgot about someone that you did listen to before and they have a new release out again. You're like, oh, this is amazing. It makes your experience better because you're like, I loved Alexandra Kay. I didn't know she had a new release coming out. Amazing.
I literally, as you were talking about her, I remember covering her at Billboard and was like, huh, I liked that song. I'm so glad you're reminding me of her because I'm gonna go look her up. So that's
She's
so funny because that's literally
amazing.
happening to me right now.
That girl is going all the way, and she is
Yeah.
everything I talked about that is like the artists that have the thing. She does all those five things I
Love that.
mentioned. She is absolutely incredible. So proud of her on so many levels. She needed to go to country radio because in country, radio is still important. So, and we couldn't do that. She needed like $1 million to go to country radio, and I was like, yeah, that's not. We don't play
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but in some genres, just being in digital is not possible. But what's super interesting is that many genres are very, very digital only. You don't need those
Yeah.
physical, you don't need the radio. Hip hop, electronic music, these are all digital first genres. And so you just need to be where audiences are
Yeah.
digitally. Everyone's cut the cord with their traditional media. So the way all those things I just mentioned of how you would develop an artist, they don't apply today
Mhm.
in the way in some genres like country it does still, but not many. And even that's getting eroded. I definitely feel like country is like that's all going to get broken up
Yeah.
eventually. It's a matter of time. So I just think it's a really interesting time. And what we've really tried to build is building it, the way you would develop an artist hasn't changed. You just are doing it in digital with more personalization and more abilities to cater to micro tastes.
Yeah. And I also love the recognition that as much as things have the way that we're doing things has changed, a lot of the blueprints or how you would go about it or just the high level overview is the same, like what you're saying with physical. You would go to the place where the people are and you'd be there in the right place, be there at the right time, like go directly to your audience. We're still doing that. We're still going to the bigger your analogy of radio to algorithms. Like it's interesting and important, I think, to always be looking at what has happened before and how that relates to now, because I think, I mean, I know we're running out of time. This is another topic I could spend 30 minutes on, but I think that we're seeing a lot of really interesting sort of pendulum swings right now where people are missing things from the past and they're sort of coming back, and we're ending up with this almost sort of hybrid of, people missing having more IRL events. They don't want everything to just be digital anymore. People missing a little bit more of that human touch, listening to online radio again. We're seeing growth in online radio in the consumer surveys that we put out, things like that. Again, could talk about this forever. I know we're running out of time, but I just think that's super important, is always to be thinking of, how does what we're doing now relate to the past, and not just throwing out things from before because we're so hyper focused on the new, but also looking at, what are the things we want to do away with, and what are the things that we actually want to take with us into this new era, because I think that there are a lot of those things. Anyways, um, there's so much I want to talk to you
I
about.
know. Likewise, I feel like we need like a second one of these. Hey, Tom, maybe we get a part two. I realized we didn't actually get, we started off on the personal side and we end on the personal side a little bit. And, can't wait to see where the music industry is going. But obviously, we're also need to enjoy today. Talk to me really quick about like, what do you do outside of work?
Oh,
And
I
how do you
love that.
spend your time? And we'll end on that.
Oh, I love that. Okay. I have, I guess, two big things that I spend my time on, and one is music related, of course, and one is not. The music related one is that I'm DJing now, which is awesome. I started learning like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and as if the world needed another DJ, but that has
Oh,
been completely sort of I don't know, like reinvigorating my relation to music, or just I feel like I'm 13 again, like trawling through SoundCloud looking for mixes that I haven't heard before, like wanting to just, I don't know, discover in a way that I just haven't felt the same appetite for. So that's been amazing. Reconnecting to music in that way has been amazing. And then the other thing is that I play soccer a few times a week with a local pickup
oh.
group in Brooklyn. So yeah, those are things that I've been doing, and soccer more often now that it's actually finally summer. What about you?
Yeah, so my job takes a huge amount of my time. But and I used to be a marathon runner. One day I'll get back to that. I've run like 50 half marathons and 7 full marathons. One day I'll get back to that. But now I'm really just dividing my time between work and being a mom. I had my daughter who is 6 and my son who's 4 in my life, and they are incredible. Um, I feel like I've discovered the world through a whole new lens because of them. And I just, it's interesting to watch them become little people. My daughter is very crafty. She would cover every surface of my house in a piece of art if she could. We have rules about where she can put
I
tape.
love that.
And then my son is obsessed with just characters. So I just got so many of the very niche Marvel characters down, and then he just switched it up on me after the Minecraft movie, and now he is obsessed with Minecraft, and I am learning about so many
Yeah,
things. So
I'm
I'm
sure.
like, what are these? These are like
These
the
terms.
village people, and then like creeper blows up, and there's this other, and those are the basic ones. There's just it's a
Love
whole
that.
world. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
amazing.
it's amazing. I've really I love being a mom. It's very tricky being a mom and also having my job, and you have to carve out the space to make sure that you're present. So for all the parents out there, you know what I'm talking about. I always have to make it home for bedtime. That's like my rule, and then I try not to be away traveling on the weekends. So so it's hard. It's a hard balancing act. I'm not gonna lie, but it's so amazing.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I was like, oh, we ran out of time for is just, I don't know, being two women in the industry who, have made it to our respective roles in a really male-dominated space. And we obviously have done the two Be the Change gender equity and music reports in collaboration. So I don't know, in lieu of having more time to discuss this, recommend anyone to go check those out. They are free and available online. But yeah, I don't know, a topic that you and I are happy to speak to, I think, any woman who reach out and have questions or want to vent about anything. So we didn't get to touch on it that much today, but I know you and I are kind of very open to chatting to anyone who wants to chat. So yeah.
Totally. And just I think that we are seeing some change in seeing more women participate in the music industry and move up the ranks. We'd like that trajectory to move faster. And it's both on the creator side and on the executive side is the case on both ends. But there is progress, and for all those that are in the room, if you are a male ally, thank you for your partnership and for supporting women in the music industry. The big step, the big things that women need, if you're a creator or a artist, number one is access to resources and opportunities. So give those opportunities. If you can bring somebody like lift as you rise, it really makes a big difference, women to women, men to women. And I think that if we all participate, it's not something for, oh, someone else is going to solve this. Like we all have to be actively a part of it to actually drive change. So yeah, something we can go on for its own session as well. But yes, go to if you Google Be the Change, at tunecore.com/Be the Change, you'll find the studies, and hope you check them out. And it tells you how you can get involved. So, and I
I don't
think
want it to end.
I know Tom, you're
Yeah.
back.
This has been crazy good. I'm so happy that we did this. And seriously, you guys want to do a part two? I guarantee you every member of the audience would give me a high five on that. So let's discuss doing that sometime soon.
Great.
Tatiana, as I said at the outset, you are one of the smartest people in any room that you enter. Andreea, Lord, what a great career. And the thing that I love about your story more than any is transitioning from outside of the music industry to a serious C-suite role in the business. Do you understand how unusually rare that is?
Crazy.
Um, Incredible.
Amazing.
To the
I think,
audience,
yeah, the advice I got on that of like, what's the worst that can happen? Just I'm not afraid to try. And so don't be afraid. Like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Show up, do your best work. Make sure it's visible. And then as you get there, be visible. Especially for if you're a part of an underrepresented group, it's super important because it helps others that are like you see that that's possible for them. So
amen. Well, to the audience, I promised you that you would leave smarter and more inspired than you arrived. We delivered that in spades today. And it's to these ladies that we owe the gratitude and the thank you. Um, I always sign off with the same message. Be nice to each other. That's more important today than any. So be nice to each other. Celebrate Juneteenth, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Andrea. Bye.
thanks all.